your head, but I'll wait till everything I'll fall.
Hello, everybody. We are here again, second day of the Animasyros AGORA, and we are really glad to have with us Olivier Catrin. For those who weren't yesterday in this fantastic panel about co-production challenges, I would like to introduce him, a short curriculum. So Olivier Catrin created the production company Les Trois Ours in 2008 and produced, among others, Kiki of Montparnasse, which won a César for Best Short Animation Film. Today, he is a freelancer producer on international co-production projects and animation consultant. He is teaching animation production and film history à l'INASUP et à Sciences Po. And he is very happy to make a masterclass for all of us about co-production in France for short movies. The floor is yours. Welcome.
Thank you. It works. Okay, navigating international co-productions in France. What a program. So, to talk about that, first I decided to focus only on short films because if not it would be too wide, and it is my main activity. So what I'm going to do is first to explain you how it works in France, not in detail, but for you to have an idea. Then I will tell you how I came to do that, and then I will speak about the films I've produced, or I'm producing now, telling about why I chose this project, how it worked, and what happened, and I have a few stories about difficulties or very nice things that happened during the production of the films. So the first part is more, how to say, deductive? Deductive part, yes. So I will explain you a bit, but you have to know that to understand the following. So the general situation. So we are producing a lot of short films in France in general, and animation has a big part in it. And we have all a system to produce them. There is something like funded short film between 40 to 50 produced a year in France. And I don't count the graduation film because there is probably 400 short films a year from animation schools, and many films done without any budget, of course. The budget we can raise in France is about 100,000 for a short film, sometimes a bit more, but more than that is really complicated. If the short film is very long, that can be more, but more or less it is about 20,000 euros, which is not bad, but which is most of the time not really enough to do a short film in proper condition. One of our strengths in France is diffusion. We have distribution companies, we have many festivals, and you know the most important one, Annecy, is very important. And most of the time, the diffusion is the most important part for short film, because you know there is a very small market for short films, so the most important part is the diffusion. You can have the selection in festivals and the awards, of course, but also diffusion in televisions, because we have a very active television in diffusion of short film and production of short film. So we are producing short film. Why? Not for money, of course, but it's mostly for pleasure, and also it can be a very useful strategy, because from the success of a short film, that you can really open some doors, and it's true for the director. I don't know, you know, Father and Daughter by Michael Dudok-Dewitt, or Schism by Jérémy Clapin. It was really opening a door for feature film, for instance, but it can open some doors for TV series or ads or many different things. But it's also very important for the producer because this way he can have a situation, a position in the world of animation, and many short film producers after that produce some very beautiful feature films. So there is more than 30 companies and maybe almost 40 now producing regularly short animation. Some of them came recently to do some animation. They were doing live action film, but more and more are starting to do animation now. So that means many companies and all over France. It's not only in Paris, it is specific to animation. Live action is really based in Paris mostly, but animation is all over France, and there is producers in different regions of France. That is very important, that it's connected to a state policy, but also to a funding system that I will explain. So the funding system. Most of the money comes from the National Film Center, CNC in France, which is Centre National du Cinéma et de l'Image Animée and Animated Movies. So it's in the title of the film fund. There is also an important part regional funds. So there is 13 regions in France, all have their own funding system. There is broadcasters, of course. So broadcasters are very important in TV series. They are also very important for feature films, but also there is a part of the money coming from the broadcasters for short film, and there is several TV channels involved. And there is other funds like writing, original music. So we almost always have original music for short films because there is a specific funding for it. So the CNC. There is many ways to enter into CNC to get funding for short film. So there is traditional selective way before filming funding. So you apply with a project, and there is 2 steps. One only for animation, and the other one mixing all kind of short films. It's very difficult to get it because there is 10 sessions a year, and there is thousands of projects, and more or less there is 8 to 10 animation short film funded by this system, selective funding. If you didn't get the money from the CNC before doing the film, you still can apply after doing the film, and you can get some money after filming funding, less money, but it's very nice because you did the film already, so it's some money you can reinvest in some film or pay some things. Something very important, which is very specific to France, is the production company's program funding. It's a yearly program. So it's not connected to the project itself, it's connected to the activity of the company. So you get some points connected to the selections in festivals, the awards, the diffusion on television, in cinemas, all kind of things, diffusion of the film. You get an amount of points, and with this amount of points makes you eligible to this program. And then there is also an editorial consideration about your activity. So there is a jury listening to you, and they give you an amount of money for the year with a program of short film. You can invest, you have to invest a part of it in development and a part of it in production. You choose your own project. That's very important because that's a kind of security. If you really want to do a short film and you think for many reasons, because it's, I don't know, too experimental, too difficult to describe, to defend, I don't know, you can be sure to fund it, to be able to have money to do it. It's very important. And especially very important for producers doing short film for children, because the funding system in France doesn't fit for short films, to children film, because mostly people in the commission are not interested by a short film for children, and television are not interested for film for children because it's for very late shows and it's for adults. So it's very difficult to find money for this. There is also the audiovisual funding, which is trained for short films. That means that if you have a TV broadcaster invest in the short film, pre-buying or co-producing the short film, you can get, even if you didn't get the money from the CNC, you can have another way to get the money from this audiovisual fund. That the idea is that the CNC always invest some money when there is a TV broadcaster invest into project. It's true for TV series, of course, but it's also true for short films. It's not really automatical, but it was for some years, but it's not so selective. So the TNC gives the money, the same amount of money that the TV broadcasters put in the film. The sound and visual contribution is a plus funding. So if you have a film extremely innovative, artistically audacious, something like that, you can have more money. It's true for all kind of films, including short films. And it can be some important money. It can be some 30,000 euros, for instance. There is also this innovative project funding, which is for starting the project. So you have to be French resident to attend to it. You have to write in French, but you don't have to be French. And you can have some money for the concept of the film, for the writing, even for rewriting, if the commission decide it. And this goes to the authors of the film. Can be 1, 2, and then the next step is development. Development money is for the production company. So at this stage, you need a producer, but most of the time, the CNC follows. If you got concept or writing funding, it's easier to get development funding also to do the film. So you do the film in very good conditions because developer. For concept and writing or rewriting, it's 8,000 euros that goes to the authors, which is an amount for a short film. It's not nothing. And for development, it could be from 15 to 30,000 euros. So to develop a film, it's very comfortable. And what is very specific to this system, it is very open to co-production because the money that we get from the CNC, we can spend it everywhere. I can get money from the CNC and spend everything in Greece, for instance, paying Greek people. Theoretically, it's possible. Most of the time, it's better for me to use some French talents, but it's possible. So it's an exception for short films. It's not the same for feature films or TV series. There is some rules, but for short film, it's very open. That makes co-production very easy. Regional fundings. So there is many different regions for funding animation, not all of them. For instance, in Corsica, I don't think they fund animation. They don't have much money and no animation producer or school. But almost all of them are investing money in it. So it's from 20 to 40,000 euros. But it's very different system. It is connected to the expenses in the region. So they give you an amount of money. They give you, I don't know, let's say 20,000 euros. You have at least to spend this money in this region, and sometimes they ask for more expenses in the region. That can be a bit more than that. What is interesting, that is this regional funding is also supported by the CNC. So when the region puts 20,000 euros, the CNC add 10,000 euros automatically. So it's to push the region to invest in the production. Maybe it's useful to remind you that the money from the CNC is not really state money. it is money from the industry. Each time there is a diffusion of film in France, there is a part of the incomes that are going into the CNC and reinvest into this system. This regional funding makes national co-productions. That means that producers in different regions in France can co-produce a project because they have the access of this regional funding. So here is a map of France with all the regions, and the most important in animation are Nouvelle-Aquitaine, with the main city is Bordeaux, but the main city for animation is Angoulême, and Angoulême is about 50,000 people living in the city, and animation is the first activity of the city, so it's really an animation city. But also Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes, there is Annecy in this region, for instance. The region where I live, Hauts-de-France, around Lille. For instance, in Lille there is 7 animation schools, 15 animation companies, studios, producers. In Brittany also, with a specialty in stop motion. And there is a very specific region, which is Centre-Val de Loire. There is just few producers, no animation school, but there is an animation residency called Cyclic. It is a production residency. It can also be for developing feature films and TV series, but for short film it is a production residency. So the regional funding is connected to the fact that you go to this place and you are doing a big part of the film in this residency. Very specific system. TV broadcasters. So the most important one is Arte France. You know, Arte is French and German, but the French part is the most active and more investing into short films. So they are doing like 30 to 40 short animation a year in co-production or pre-buying the right, or putting money. From the amount of money is between 12,000 to 20,000, something like that. So it's small part of the budget, but it's important because it's considered as private funding, and you know we have a European rule that we can have more than 80% of public funding for short films. So we need some private parts, and television is part of it. There is also France 2, France 3, and some regional broadcasters in different regions of France that can pre-buy some short films. So there is probably like 7 or 8 possibilities to find a television to invest into short films. The relationship with TV broadcaster is very different than from film funding because it's investor, so is part of is more part of the making of the film. So he has his own opinion. You have to discuss the script. You have to discuss the editing. You have to discuss the voices or everything. So it's really an exchange with the TV broadcaster, and it can have an influence of the content of the film, of course. And sometimes it's very rare. Sometimes there is a split, and the television can stop the contract if they are not happy with the film. It's very rare, but it can happen. Sometimes it happens, so it reminds you as a producer that it is possible. Of course, there is a residencies, so you know everything about Fontevraud if you were there yesterday. It is a main residency. Residencies are very important to give time to filmmakers and scriptwriters to develop the project, because most of the people doing short films are also animation technicians. They work on films, and so they need some time to develop their own projects. So that's why residencies are very important. So a list of few residencies. So for feature films in Annecy, all kind of films in Saint-Quirin, which is a very small town in east of France, but a very nice residency. Maison des Auteurs in Angoulême. It is a residency with no grant, but they give you the place for 6 months, 1 year, sometimes more, to do the film, which is very nice, and it's beautiful house with different artists connected to animation and comics. In Folimage in Valence, there is also residency for young audience, so there is 1 project a year, so they welcome a foreign director for 1 year. They give the money and the technicians to do the film, which is very nice because they are very good in Folimage. So most of the time it's very good films. There is also a residency for music. It is in Normandy. So if you want to spend some time with your musician, music composer, you can do it. And also you can go to some residencies abroad. So Meknes, as Xavier mentioned yesterday, is a French-speaking residency. Cinémathèque Québécoise is very open also, had some project made residency there. And Animation Workshop is in Denmark. Very useful residency, very important part to develop the project with the director. So exchange during this time is very important. So now that you know everything about, not everything, but you know the landscape about producing a short animation in France, I will talk to you about what am I doing. So my background is anthropology. It's not directly connected to what I'm doing now, but I have the feeling that it is, in a way, at least in the way I'm doing the things now. I'm doing production now. And I love cinema. I always love cinema, and my desire to work in this field comes from this love of films. As you heard, I'm teaching film history. So. Then when, after working after studies, I decided at the moment to go to animation, and then my first real experience was to work with the French Animated Film Association, which is an old association doing many things for animation in France. And I did many different things for this association for years, including launching the International Animation Day celebration. But also, when I joined this association, I decided to be the person who answers to every questions. So when you have a national association, there is always many people asking some questions. So it was very interesting for me because it was a way to learn things about everything, about techniques, about film history, about I don't know, many different things, including sometimes some people interested by doing a film and how do we do a film, where to find a producer, is there any funding, things like that. So I started to be interested to this question through this activity in this association, and I started to follow some films developing this way. And then after some years, I decided to quit this association and to create a production company called Les Trois Ours. So Les Trois Ours was created in 2008, and there was an animation studio in Angoulême. And we were doing some mostly short films, but also some TV series, and we tried at that time to do some feature film. And of course, if I talk about animation, I have to show you something. So I will show you the trailer of Kiki of Montparnasse, which was one of the first projects I had in my hands. And the César winner in 2014, and at the end of the year we bankrupt, which is a nice story, no? But let's see Kiki.
Ah, cette sacrée rotonde. On y allait comme si on rentrait chez soi. On se sentait en famille, quoi.
Et regardez, Kiki
Kiki et son beau galurin.
Hé, Utrilo, viens donc t'asseoir avec nous. Et j'espère que t'as de la maille, parce que nous, on n'a plus rien.
Détail.
Le patron nous servait à l'œil contre quelques toiles. Ah, on peut dire qu'il a fait de bonnes affaires, celui-là.
So Kiki was a famous model and artist in the 20s. No, one is enough. And so, and the style of the film changes considering the artist she meet. So some part are like Modigliani style, some like Soutine style, things like that. So it's and different techniques. So it's changing every time. So I said that at the end of the year we bankrupt because we were on biggest project, and for all of them there was some problem. So 2014 was very nice beginning, and at the end of the year it was a nightmare. And then I asked to myself, why did I wanted to be a producer and to manage a company, because I was the manager of the company. So, but I will come to that. What happened after that is two important things for me, many different things, but two important things for me. It first is the creation of Animation du Monde. Animation du Monde is a program in Annecy Festival. They decided to create a special category for pitching project dedicated to emerging countries in animation. And then to choose some coach to do some workshop in these countries to develop some projects, and then to choose one project to pitch it during Annecy Festival. And they asked me for the first edition to do a workshop in Georgia. I have a love story with Georgia for a long time, so it was very nice for me and to do this workshop. And from this workshop, we choose one project, and this project had a big influence of, and this workshop and the project had a big influence on my future. The other thing is Pictanovo. So Pictanovo is a regional structure in charge of regional funding in Hauts-de-France, in my region, Lille. At that time, I was not living there, but I came to do that. So I was in charge to develop animation and to be in charge of the funding for animation in this region. It was a very nice moment because there was a lot of money involved in it, and a strong political will to develop animation. So my mission was also to have events like cartoon events, Emmy Awards, and to make companies established in the region, things like that. So it was very exciting, but I knew it was just for a moment. But for a producer to have this experience is very interesting, to understand the other side, how it works, especially the film funding part was very interesting, and I understood many things, and a part of my problems, considering the other side. And then I had the idea that Pictanovo was for 3 or 4 years maybe. It was a bit less than that at the end. But I was wondering what could I do after that. Still thinking about this production company time. And so I thought a lot about it. And to understand what happened, of course, because of the bankruptcy. And what I really wanted to do with that, because I still had the desire to do some production, and during this time I was really a go-between, because many artists were coming to me to ask me if I have an idea of a production company for them to do co-production, foreign artists, and I was putting them in touch with some production companies. Sometimes it was very nice, sometimes not. But it was a bit frustrating for me because artists that I loved and wonderful projects. So I wanted to come back into production. I want to show you just a small, the trailer of Pocket Man, which is the project that came out from the first workshop in Georgia. So, I want to tell you a few things about this. So Anna Chubinidze was an illustrator, knowing about nothing about animation, but she was a natural animator. So when we chose this project, I saw the potential in it, and I coached her for the anti-pitching, and I was thinking at that time that it could have been a very nice project for Folimage residency, young audience film. So I managed to bring the producer from Folimage to attend the pitch, and then I managed to make Anna invited in Folimage for a few days, saying, oh, it would be nice for her to visit an animation studio. But my real idea was animation residency. And then they invited her to pitch the project, and they fell in love with the project, so they decided to produce it. So I was just the godfather of the film. At that time, I was not producer. But from it started a really beautiful co-production story. So there was a producer in Georgia who was the creator of the workshop I did, in fact. And but after this film, Anna decided to create her own production company, an animation studio, and she asked me to work for her as a producer. So now we are working together, but me on the Georgian side, doing co-production with France, which is very specific. But I will come to that because we produced another film together. So I will tell you how it happened. So, freelance producer. So my question was, what do I really want to do? And what I really want to do is helping people with talent, not running a company because it was always boring for me. It was a necessity, but not interesting. Having trusting relationships with people, and also to do something in emerging countries, like I did in Georgia. And my work in Georgia was also to work to develop animation, and it was very, very nice, very interesting for me. Very, I don't know, it was very nice. And also to have time for teaching, coaching, consulting that I always love to do, but if you run a company, you don't have time for that. And it was very important for me. So I decided to try to invent my own formula to be a producer. So freelance producer, what does it mean? It means that I don't have to run a company, you understood that? So I'm all by myself. And my idea at the beginning was to offer to 2 different companies to work for them. So to find some project for them and to produce them for them. So the first 2 companies said, oh yes, okay, we are interested because different reasons. For one company, because they were a very good studio developing the production activity but not much experience in it. And for the other company, it was already an important production company, Miu Production, and they were developing a lot, so I had the idea that maybe they could need some help from outside. But the idea was really to be from outside and to be free of choosing my own project and producing with some partners. But what happened is that after that I went to Clermont-Ferrand Film Festival, and some fellow producers that I knew before asked me, "What are you doing now?" And I explained them that, and many of them said, "Okay, but I'm interested. Propose me some project. I'm interested by this kind of collaboration." So I started to work with other production company this way. So, how do I work? I will explain you film by films. So the first film I made as a freelancer is Tech House. So Spela Chadej is a very well-known filmmaker in animation. She's doing beautiful films. She's her own producer. She created her own production company, Finta Studio. And so what she needs is some partners to complete the budget, mostly, and maybe for post-production, but she can do everything by herself. But I knew her for years, and even in the time of Les Trois Ours, I had the idea to collaborate with her. So it was the first person I wrote to say, "Okay, I would like to do a film with you, if you have a project." And she said, "Yes, I have a project. I'm going to pitch it in Clermont-Ferrand, and I'd like to work with you." So that's how it happened, very easily. And it was very easy because we had not much. I had not much to do on this film. I was just a side producer, so we had just original funding. We could have more than that, but there was a German producer in this story who needed a minimum part of the percentage of the production, so it was not possible for us to get more money to do the film. So small part in France. So what we did is just to have an animator. She was supposed to do a work in Lille at the beginning, but then we decided it would be better that she goes to Ljubljana to work directly with Spela. That we did. And it was a very good animator, so everything went very well and very easily. It happens sometimes. But because really Spela is very experimented, so it was very easy. I can even say that I was very well paid on this film, surprisingly, because in fact the part of the work we had to do on the film was less important than it was planned, but we had the obligation to use regional funding, and I was living in this region, so so they paid me more. So I was really well paid for a small amount of work. I'm very happy to be the co-producer of this film, but to say the truth, my artistic impact is not so important in this film. We talked about the project, we decided what was important for both of us, and she did everything by herself. So it was very easy. Tech House is in competition here, but I can show you the trailer if you want. Why? It doesn't work. Interesting. It was working, and this one is not working. You'll see the film. No, I don't know why. No, it's my PowerPoint, I think. There's probably a problem with this file. No, there is. Well, okay. Forget it. Not important. So the second one is also a Slovenian project. Granny's Sexual Life. Completely different configuration, because as you notice there is two directors. Oskar Djukic is a live-action film director, never did animation, and Émilie Pijat is a French animation animator and director. So they met together in a festival and they decided to do a film together, collaboration. So that means also that the Slovenian producer, Studio Virch, is not an animation producer. It was the first time for him too. But I choose to do the film with Iki Film because I wanted to work with them, just. But it was a 50-50 co-production, so France had an important part, and we did all the animation in France. And the animation was done in a residency in Cyclic the animation residency I was talking about in center of France. So they spent 4 months there to do the film. It was a bit difficult. It was a bit difficult because the 2 directors were there, and one of them was doing all the animation, the design, things like that. So she had a huge amount of work to do, with some help, of course. And the other one, the live action director, was just saying, okay, this, no. And she had a lot of time, free time. So it was really unbalanced situation. And from this came some stress and some tensions. So it was a bit difficult to manage. It was the first time I had this experience, not of co-directing, but co-directing, sharing the same time and with no same abilities. It was a bit difficult to manage. Plus the fact that, yes, we had a co-producer not knowing what is animation, but it was a very nice person, so talking, explaining things, the relationship between producers was very, very nice. It was more complicated between directors and especially between Slovenian producer and director. But at the end, I was very happy about the project. I liked very much about the project, and especially because it's very daring. It's really animated documentary with a strong point of view and a very audacious way to use animation for documentaries. So for this film, we had the cyclic residency, some money from the CNC connected to the fact that we had Arte France, and the film was screened on Arte, which was very nice. And on the other side, yes, Slovenian Film Center, National Broadcaster, and Creative Europe also for development of the film. I hope it will work.
Jaz sem odrasla v takem cajt, ki je bila največja odlika ženske to, da je bila tiha in se ni uvašala, kadar se tudi ni od nje nič pričakoval. Ko sem bila jaz mlada, tako ženska ni imela nobenih pravic.
Ženska je bila pač doma za štedilnik, nikoli ni v službo hodila.
Mogla je biti pokorna, mogla je biti dobra gospodina, mogla je urejevati otroke, pa mogla je biti možu za užitek.
So you can see this film, I think, tomorrow in the competition. Steakhouse, it is this evening, I think. Yeah. From this experience, I decided not anymore to work with a director that I don't know well. And especially with directors working together for the first time. Or if I know well both of them, maybe. It's very important because you spend a lot of time together, and if it's problematic, it was problematic in a way, but it was not a terrible situation. It was more difficult for them, and you are in charge of it also, if they have difficulties of relationship. Then, Anna Chubinize's new film. So on this film, I'm on Georgian side, so working for Pocket Film. And we went again to Folimage, because it is a stop motion film, as you see. It's not really standing stop motion, it's some relief, so it's half stop motion, something like that. And it would have been impossible to do it in Georgia because of skills and because of the money we can raise in Georgia. So it was, of course, very important to have a partner, and Folimage was a very nice partner for the first film, so it was obvious that we will propose a collaboration with Folimage. At the beginning, we were supposed to do the film also with the National Film Board of Canada, but the project was very late for different reasons, and the producer from the National Film Board changed her position, Julie Roy, and then she was not in position to produce it, so we had to do it without the National Film Board. So we had very early money from Georgia, and a bit later money from France, from CNC and Creative Europe. So what we did, what was very important for me and for Anna, of course, is to do a beautiful film, but also to develop Anna's studio and the skills of people working with her. So we really wanted to do some things in Georgia. There was no sense to do everything in France. So for the first film, there was a background artist that came in Georgia for a time to develop the background, and then two young Georgian beginner animators that came to Folimage to learn some things. But for this second film, we did all the pre-production and all the props in Georgia. We did the shooting in France, because animators in Folimage are too good, it's impossible to have it in Georgia. And we did all the sound post-production in Georgia with a very good sound and music studio. So it was really a real collaboration, and we have another project together, and we will try also to do more things in Georgia. We are not sure about the technique we are going to use, but we had a deal with Folimage that if it is stop motion, because Anna really wants a stop motion studio, that we will do the shooting in Georgia with some French animators to teach to Georgian people. So also my idea of co-production could be connected to this kind of deal. At the end, I think we will do the film in 2D animation, so it will be another thing, another deal probably. But it's very important for me also to consider this aspect of the question, its transmission. That's why it worked very well with Folimage, because they are in the same state of mind. Unfortunately, our partner in Folimage is retiring now, so it will be the last collaboration with them, but we'll find other partners. So, Francis Soup Kitchen, you can watch how to tracks. So, all these films were very successful, so I'm very lucky. It helps, especially the directors, but for the producer it's nice too. And the first one is Shadow of the Butterfly. So this is a Moroccan director, Sofia Chiari, that I met in Morocco in Meknes Animation Festival, a very nice festival. Some of you know the festival, but if you don't, you should go. It's very nice. And it is a different situation because I was not at the beginning of the project, not at the very beginning of the project. It was a producer, Amsterdam, who decided to produce this film, but the director and the producer asked me to join the project because it was a very new producer. It was just his second film, and they wanted my collaboration because of my experience and maybe because I'm a nice guy, I don't know, but they asked me to produce with them. It was very difficult to get some money for this film. So I was very well paid on Spella's film, but I was paid almost nothing on this film. It was really on my free time, let's say. Because it's very, it's a film about an idea, about this idea of saudade, the Portuguese word which is like nostalgia and longing, something like that. So it's very, even the word is difficult to explain, so the project as a film is very difficult also to explain. So we had small money from France, regional funding and regional television, but we had the chance to meet by chance a Portuguese director. My idea at the beginning was to find a Moroccan co-producer, which is logical, as she is Moroccan, but it was really impossible. I can tell you my beginnings. To apply to the Moroccan Film Fund, Sofia needed a director's card to be identified as a director. And the people there from the Film Fund said, but we can give her a card, she's doing animation. So it was really difficult. And we tried with 2 different companies and collapsed. But we were lucky to find Cola Animation in Portugal. They were interested by the project, and they did mostly the post-production part with a small amount of money from ICA, Institute of Cinema and Portuguese Culture. And we had the support of Arab Fund for Art and Culture, which is a fund based in Lebanon, and Doha Film Institute. These are really funding connected to Arab artists, and it helped a lot for the project. It was a long way. So this film, I didn't tell you about the residency, but Anna Choubenidze for her program, film had a residency in Cinémathèque Québécoise in Montreal. And this film had the residency at la Maison des Auteurs in Angoulême. So she spent 1 year to do the film for free in a beautiful space and all what she needed. It was very nice in Angoulême. This was also very nice, a nice collaboration between the producers and with the artist. It's a first film, so it was not easy. It was very challenging, and you would see the technique is not easy at all. And I really think that the film is even better than my hopes, which is always very nice, in my opinion, but you can disagree. So Sofia, the director, arrives today, I think, or tomorrow. today. Yes, today. Yeah, I think she arrived today. Yeah, she arrived today. And the premiere of the film was in Locarno Film Festival, and the second was in Toronto International Film Festival, which is amazing for a short film, I think. So I haven't seen her since Annecy, but maybe now she's another person because she became a star. We will see. We will check that. No, she's very, very nice and clever and talented artist. So what I'm doing now in production is Box Cutters by Naomi van Niekerk. Naomi van Niekerk is a South African artist. She was trained in puppets in France, and she's doing some different kind of arts, in fact, and animation. And I met her in Johannesburg, in South Africa. At that time, I was in charge of preparing the African focus for ANSI in 2020. So I was traveling a lot in Africa, and I met her. And she was a friend of Anna Chubinidze, so we were, in a way, introduced online. And so we had a talk. She proposed. She offered me to visit her studio and show me some few images, and I was really in love with what I saw, and with her also. It was very nice meeting, and I said to her after half an hour, okay, I will produce you. That's the first time I do this kind of thing, because most of the time I spend a lot of time to see if it's possible to make a collaboration. But for her it was very quick. So I went again to Iki Film, and she was already in touch with a Dutch producer, Valk Productions, which I didn't really know at that time, but just a little bit. But we made a deal with them, of course. And Drivzen is our own company in South Africa. So it's 3-country co-production, but as you noticed, for South Africa it's in kind, because we applied for film funding in South Africa, and they say no, it's not for us, not interesting, okay. But in France we had money, so France is a major producer. We had money from Arte France, from CNC, from Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes region, so she's doing the film actually in Lyon. And there is a minor co-production with Netherlands, and we will do mostly sound and music post-production with Netherlands. So she came to France to do the film. It was much easier because in France she can have some help. She had her own studio in Johannesburg, but it was really easier. And she decided to stay in France, so it will be a very nice thing for France. I'm sorry for South Africa, but they deserve it. So the film is in production now. It is sound animation and drawing on film. It's a long process, but it will be finished probably in January or February. And I will show you few images. So it's definitive images. It's finished plans. Just to give you an idea.
3 mans in werksklere, 'n grasmasjien, 'n bokskutter.
Of course, it's not the final song. That's all for the moment. It's really connected to South African reality, day-to-day life, and it's important for me also to have this feeling that the film is connected to the country itself. Even Anna Chubinidze's Friends' Soup Kitchen could be maybe you can see the connection with Georgia, but I see the cultural connection. It's important for me, and also the other films are in a way specific. So the other one in production actually is Electra, a poem. It is a Russian director, Daria Kashcheyeva, living for now, I don't know, almost 10 years in Czech Republic, in Prague. And she studied animation there. So it's a very specific situation because Daria has made one animation film as a student for FAMU. And this film, Daughter, won the student film Oscar, and it was very, very successful. And this film is also a student film. She's still in FAMU as a student, but she's over 30 years old, so it's a very specific situation. And in FAMU, they are doing film with producers. So, in fact, there is 3 producers. There is FAMU, in a way, which is producer, but there is a main producer in Czech Republic, more films, a French producer, Papy 3D, and a Slovak producer. It is a very expensive film, mixing size 1 puppets with mannequins, but animated heads and animated, and actors in pixelation. So it's like a live action shooting, in fact, with puppets. It's very difficult and challenging, so expensive, and it's a long film. Plus, it's long. So, what happened? I knew Daria for meeting her in festival, so I liked her very much, very clever and nice person. And she pitched this project during a pitching forum in Poland. And then I offered her to be a French producer for her. And she said, okay, we are going to speak to my producer, my main producer, more film, Martin Van Das, that I knew for years also. And he said to me, thank you, but I already had three producers from France that offered me co-production for the film, because she became very famous, and so many producers wanted to work with her. And he said, but we are going to do it with you. It was very nice because I came just on my own with no production company, and we decided to go to Papy 3D, Papy 3D, because they are good producers, but also because they wanted to do stop motion, and also because they had the access, they were looking for a project for the short film program funding. So there was and they needed an answer quickly. So I chose this producer mainly because of that. And most of the time because I didn't say how I work with the production company, it's time to say it now. So I bring the project, I'm in charge of the production, but of course I need the production company for all the administrative stuff, but more than that, there is an artistic collaboration with the production company, of course, more or less. It depends of what they want, what they need, if they have time, if they have the will. But there is a really a collaboration. But I have to decide all the artistic question and all the question considering co-production and the relationship with the director. All things connected to the money is really dedicated to it's for the production company itself, of course, because it's their money. So that's how it works. But for Papy 3D, Richard, the man in charge of the company, said, okay, I will do only the administrative stuff, you do everything else. I said, okay. And because this production company was created with the idea that the directors were producing themselves their own film. It was the idea at the beginning. So Richard was only doing the administrative stuff. So he was very comfortable in this situation. But after this first agreement, Morphim said, we would like you to build the size 1 puppets, because we can't do it in Czech Republic. We don't have the skills for that. Probably you have it in France. Okay? And so I had to find a partner, and nobody did that before, so it was really challenging. So I went to a company in Brittany, in Rennes, JPL Film, and they are very good in stop motion. So I said, okay, are you able to do that? And they said, I don't know, but we will try. So that's what we did. And in fact, there was a part made in Brittany and a part made in Lille, also. The mannequins were made in Lille, but the animated heads were made in Brittany, and it's very technical. It was on this side of heads, it was really challenging, and yeah. But at the end, I think it works very well. And in Slovakia, they are doing compositing and post-production. So they had to wait for us to do the puppets to start the shooting. We were a bit late because it was more difficult than we were thinking. Well, we thought it was difficult, but it was even a bit more difficult to do it because it was the first experience for the technicians. But at the end now they are shooting the film, and the shooting will be finished early November probably, and the film will be finished in February. Again, a very nice collaboration, even if it's sometimes it was difficult because what Daria wanted was just impossible, so she had to readapt a wish and a script to reality. And she did it very cleverly, and I think even for the better of the film for some time. For instance, at the beginning, there is 2 main characters, and there is 5 other characters in the film, so that means 7 puppets, which is a lot. And at the beginning, she wanted different heads for everybody, and we said, it's impossible. We can't do 7 heads. We would need 200,000 euros just for that, which is impossible. So she chose to have the same for the main protagonist friends. We have the same head with different design, things like that. Solutions that she found talking with people and realizing that not everything was possible. So what I'm going to show you, it is a trailer made before doing the film. So it was more a test, but it gives you an idea. There is no mannequins in
always
it.
had a lot of good quality, expensive cosmetics. Father bought some for it quite often. I was never allowed to touch it. It was my 10th birthday, and my friends were invited to the party. All the girls at the party were dying of envy because my mom did my makeup. I really liked it. I wanted to surprise my father, and I cut my hair. I was sure he would like it because my mom had bangs. He shouted at me, but this time words were not enough for him. He didn't expect I would be left with a black eye. Mother carefully made me makeup so that nothing was visible at all. I really liked it. Father wasn't at the party. He left us that morning. He loved us that morning. He loved us that morning.
It will be probably a very surprising film. We are also doing the music in France, and at the beginning she wanted to work with a very famous German film composer, music composer, but he didn't answer at all. So I looked for a music composer, and I had an idea, a newcomer in this field. But I think it was a very long process. There was something like 20 exchanges, and he did some testing to convince Daya. She really wanted some very precise things. She has a very precise idea about music. She has a musical education, so she knew very well. But at the end, she was convinced, and so at the end of the film, we are going to work on the music, which is very nice because I like very much this part. So we are going to record it in Lille. And also something very nice that when Daria came in Rennes to work with the technician, she learned a lot of things about this stop motion techniques. And I think it was the sharing was very profitable and very nice for her, which is always nice when you do film. So, in conclusion, as I told you a little bit, I have a very specific position because I'm producing for companies that are not mine. So I'm a bit in the middle. I'm between the director, the co-producer, and the production company I'm working for. So they are paying me, but just for the time of the film. And I come with a project, so the most important for me is that everything goes well. And it never happens, of course, there is always some problems, so I'm here to find the solutions with the problem. And as my production, my position is not a production company, I think it's more easy. Sometimes it's more complex, but at the end I think it's more easy for me to find the good solution. To explain, for instance, the things to the director. We have a trusting relationship from the beginning, and as I don't own the money we spend for the film, it's more easy to explain there is things we can do, or we can pay this amount of money, or we have to make some choices, things like that, which is always a bit difficult in the relationship between director and production company, because there is always a suspicion that the production company keeps the money for them. Also with the foreign co-producer, I'm here for finding solution, and if there is some problem between the two producers, I'm not I'm not on one side, you see, I'm more neutral. So in a way, sometimes it's a bit difficult to find the right position in it, but also I think it helps a lot the project to find some solution. And also another thing is when you run a production company, you never have enough time, so you run after time, and it's always a bit problematic, but I have time. So I can spend some time on it. I have more time because I don't have all these things to do. If I need to spend 2 days or 3 days on a film, I can do it most of the time. Another problem that I see is, yes, am I a competitor or partner for production companies? Because I'm a partner, I'm supposed to be, because I bring them some projects. I'm doing it with them, but on the other side, I told you the story with Electra. I can be in position to be in competition with them to choose some project. That's why I didn't want to do some French films, because it's obvious that they can find easily producers. So my idea was more to bring some projects that French producers don't have access. But when it's already famous directors, many French producers want to work with them. So if they say they work with me, it's a bit complicated situation. That's why it's more simple and even more interesting for me to work with beginners. Probably my part is more important in it. But there is some film directors that I want to work with, so I will do it, but I have to be careful about it. I still have famous film director I'm going to work with. But yes, I have to take care about this position. Is not so easy, and I had a discussion. I remember a discussion with a producer who was not really happy about my position. I'm not working with this production company, so it's not a problem. But no, it's a bit new. I think that is a problem. So we have to learn how to work together. And that means also that I spend a lot of time to help some project, because as I said yesterday, my first choice is to work with a director. So sometimes I meet some film directors, new directors, newcomers, and I want to work with them, but they don't have the project, or they are developing a project, but I'm not convinced enough. I have to be convinced by the project, and I have to be convinced that I will be able to find a production company to work with. If not, so it can be a very long process, and sometimes it goes nowhere. I just help them develop the project, but I never decide to produce it. Naomi Vodnikan was very specific, but so sometimes I can have, I don't know, many exchanges about a project, not producing it. But it's interesting, and I can choose to invest my time, and if not, it's not completely lost, because I help someone to work on this project, and it means something. And at the end, I will finish to say thanks to the French animation ecosystem, because without it, it would be impossible to do what I'm doing, in fact. It's the fact that this system exists makes it possible. Maybe if the system change, if it becomes, I know, for instance, if there's some rules about how you spend the money from the CNC, or if there's less funding, maybe it will be difficult for me to work like that. Sometimes I'm working on some projects that are not my projects, that producers are asking me to help them to develop artistically some projects. I'm doing that from time to time also. But most of what I'm doing is really finding projects and producing it this way. And this really a big luck for me. I think that's it, but maybe you have some questions.
Thank you very much. It was fantastic and very original. I mean, we are not used to meet independent producers, which is you have a lot of freedom. I feel you have the freedom to choose, even when you've been chosen, which is fantastic and very rare. And I was wondering, for instance, you said with one of the projects that you collaborate with 3D, Papy 3D, you took the whole project on you. That means that you were like an executive. You had the budget as well to.
Yes, yes.
And before, just to finish the question is, okay. In this case, you had the budget also to manage. in the other cases, you don't have the budget on your hands, or do you?
Yes, I do.
Ah, okay.
Yes, I do,
So
and I manage the production too for short film. I'm not doing it for feature film because it's too much work,
It's too much?
but for short film I'm doing it because then I'm sure that everything goes well. But yes, I have the budget. Yeah.
Okay, you have the budget, and do you also have the crew choice? Let's say
Yes,
the
but
crew
we're doing it together. Yes, yes,
it
yes.
together.
But most of the times the director has some idea, and we work together on finding the right person to do it. For instance, for Steakhouse, it was really my own choice, the technician we hired. But it's a discussion. But yes, I have to approve.
Yeah.
Yes, of course, on French side.
And my last question, and then I would like the audience to listen to the audience. When do you have, I mean, in these recent years, did you ever had, how to say, did you were obliged to be physically into places? Because, I mean, when in live shooting, you have to be in the shooting. In animation, it's studios, it's completely different process. And I was wondering, where are you exactly?
No, I come from time to
Physically,
I come from time to time, but I don't spend my whole time in the place. There is always someone in charge of the production to answer to every needs. But I come from time to time. Yes.
Yes, but
that's what
can
I'm
you
doing.
lead two projects
Yes,
at the same time?
but at the moment I have 2 projects in production. It's okay. 2 projects in production
no, I
at
mean
the same time is
because
okay.
it's in different
Yes.
geographical.
Yeah, yes. But for the shooting in Prague, I don't have to be there. I can come and to see, but they don't need me. They needed me for the making of the puppets, more or less. But I was there. I came, things like that. But no. And now it's so easy to communicate also.
Yeah, of
through,
course.
But it's important to meet people. At least,
Yeah,
and the
that's
technician doing the film, yes, always do that.
Yeah,
yes.
because the
Of
personal
course,
contact
of
is
course.
so important.
Of
in
course, but to
film.
be there every day, no.
Yeah. Questions? Oui?
Thank you very much, Olivier, for your speech. It was great to see an insight from an independent producer. I've noticed that you had somewhere funding from the Creative Europe media, I suppose. But if I can say there is only one possibility with the slate funding to
Slate
have
funding, yes,
10,000
yes.
euros only. I think
Besides other projects, there is a possibility for short film to have money from media. It's a small amount of money, but it can be, yes. But
So
it's not just for the short film, it's a slate funding.
so. This funding is coming from the companies that you are working with. They
In
have
one
to.
case, yes, and in other case, it came from a Slovenian company.
Okay, but you cannot do it yourself. I mean,
The application for media?
yes.
Never, no. I did once. One is enough. No, there are people with much more skills in this kind of things than me.
Thanks. If you need media, come. But I do that a lot. But I have 3 questions. Maybe it's a habit from yesterday, but they can be very quick. Can you give us an indication on the amounts of all these funds, CNC, Cyclic, the regional ones, and Artejo? What would it be for a short?
I
For a
did that
minority?
at the beginning. I said the maximum we can have is from 200,000 to 240,000 for a short film, something like that.
From one fund? From
One film.
one fund?
No, in general for a
In
film.
general.
So from one fund, it is CNC funding. I think the maximum could be 90,000, 100,000 euros.
Okay, and the second question is there an afterlife to these films? Like they go to Locarno, Les Arcs, Toronto, then what? Except
Yes,
for
of course.
festivals.
So these films So the first one, Steakhouse, did his premiere in Locarno, and I don't know how many festivals he did, but he won something like 20 awards, and important ones. Granny Sexual Life also had a wonderful life. He's still in, and about 20 awards also, so traveling all over the world. A bit different because it's also a documentary, so there's a lot of documentary festivals. They are both eligible for the Oscars now.
Yeah, but outside the festival circuit, is there any commercial?
Not much, but there is. First, there is television for all of them. And I saw that Steakhouse will be part of a program in France, short film program in France during International Animation Day celebration. So it will be for a short time. But yes, diffusion of the film is not so important, but there is, and probably some platform will buy them. But yes, it's not really profitable economically. No, short films, no. Not really.
And the last question has to do with your model, the fact that you are a freelance producer working with other. I've done this. I've been working not for many companies, but at least for one that I didn't have shares. How do you manage the whole situation with the cash flow, the budget, the financial? Because it doesn't go through your account; it goes through another account that you are not in charge of 100%, meaning you don't have the key to the house, right?
Yes, we have to the confidence between the production company and me is very important for that. So we are doing this together. So I manage this, but with them, it is their money. So does it answer to your question?
More or less. I mean, but you have budgetary control.
Yeah.
And they are responsible of the financing. Through their company. So how do you plan this? How are you sure that it's not going to go off the boat?
We are doing the budget together. We are applying, we choose where we apply to get the funding together, and then we consider what we have. And from this, there is no other option for short film because we don't have incomes, so we know what we have to do the film, and we are paid considering what we have. So also, the way I'm paid is connected to the fact to the amount of money we can find to do the film. So I don't say okay, it would be this amount of money, and you pay me whatever happens. No, it's impossible to do that. So I'm paid considering the funding we find. And I said Shadow of the Butterflies. I think I was paid symbolically 3 days on the film. So it's nothing, it's purely symbolically, because we didn't find some money, but I'm very happy about the film. But for some other films, we find a lot of money, it happens. There's one film actually I'm doing, yes, there's a lot of money, so I will be well paid. So all in all, it works. I'm not rich doing this, but as you notice, probably I'm also teaching and doing some other thing as a consultant. So all it works, even doing short films mainly.
But do you want to do features now, or is it something?
I have 2 features, yes, actually, in development. Yeah, but it's a lot of work. So if I choosing between shorts and feature, I prefer shorts. I have much more pleasure to do shorts. So I need a real good reason to do a feature film. I'm doing one with a Peruvian director, animation in Peru. It's challenging, very strong subject, and someone I met during a workshop in Ecuador, and also a feature film in Georgia. Also someone I met during a workshop, and it's because of Georgia, probably. But I'm doing just very few films, feature films.
Yes. Any other question? Yes.
Oliver, I just want to narrow the question of a lady. It's in sense of percentage, how much percent, for example, for 5 to 10% I receiving from the general funds, or as you,
Well,
it's just as a percentage.
Let me calculate. About 10?
Yeah, just to get idea as a
Yeah.
producer too.
About 10. Yeah.
Olivier, in Greece and Cyprus, where I'm from, there's this fixation from the national film centers to have the 51% of the film, which makes co-productions for short film almost impossible, because the budgets are not so high, either in Cyprus or in Greece. And since you have to have 51%, then you either have to put your own money or pretty much make a low budget film. Do you find these in other countries, because you have a lot of experience from co-productions, and especially with emerging countries like Cyprus and Greece? Is this something that the community here needs to push to change? Your views on this?
Each country has its strange rules. But for a so small country to have this, asking this is very, very strange for me. It's difficult to defend. But there is some countries, for instance, in Armenia, I know the film center is co-producing the films, which is also very strange for me. But most of the time, there is two ways to go. There is a funding for major production and for minor co-production also in the same country. So it's not the same application. In many countries, it's like that. It's not the same in France. You don't have minor co-production funding. Maybe you could have that, but no, it's not Greece, it's Cyprus.
I have done a co-production for a short with 4 countries. There is a clause, from Greece at least, and I have a company in Cyprus, so I know the system there. There is a clause that if you have international co-production, actually, or only if you do, the Greek TV does not get 51%. So a lot of people co-produce, even if it's not real money or if it's not real something, just to avoid ERT getting 51%. That's just to make the things clear. And you're talking about what? The Greek Film Center doesn't get 51% either for shorts, for sure. Because I have done a co-production with 4 parties for a short, for actually a stop-motion animation. And Cypriot, I'm not sure about shorts, but okay. I had funding for features, not for shorts there.
No, it's interesting to know what's going on all over Europe.
Yeah, but you know the film funding, the film centers have to adapt themselves to the reality of the production, or they should. In France, they are doing it very well because they are talking with professionals, and every year there is a change because they are adapting themselves. They try, but you can always talk to people and explain, here's my situation, or it works now, and probably they will change. I don't know. I did it in Georgia a little bit, for instance, and there was really an understanding, and they adapt their rules.
Okay, last question.
It wasn't really a question. It was what we did in Belgium. We had the same problem. Like to be a majority producer, you had to be on 50%, but we changed all the rules. They said if the director is Belgian or Flemish and the producer is Flemish and the idea comes from a Flemish, you can even be at 10% or 5% and get the money from elsewhere. So, and I think that is the most important for a cultural funding. It's that the culture is being exported. So if you can explain that and work for that, I would strongly advise to do that.
And
in
even
order
for
to
minor
get the money.
even for minor co-production, I thought that Steakhouse, the German co-producer, minor co-producer, he needed 30% or 25% of the budget. Rules that we don't have in France, and in Slovenia for Granny Sexual Lives they needed 50%. For Portugal also it's the same, 50%. Sometimes we could get more money in France, but it's impossible because of this major co-production rules. Yes.
Okay, I think we have to stop here with Olivier and go on with Amit Russell Giselter from Israel. Come on, Amit, join us, please. So Amit started like an independent producer, right? And now he has Hive Studio, a big studio in Israel with more than 40 people working there, right? He's very awarded. Recently he got the Israeli Academy Award with Letter to a Pig by Tal Kantor, who is our beloved. we love Tal. She's been in our festival for so many years, and actually the two movies you have done are in the competition tomorrow. Same competition, Steakhouse and Letter to a Pig. And it would be interesting to see how you co-produce. I mean, especially let's take this like a case study, because it was with France. I mean, you tell us everything.
So hi.
Either
Hello?
No. We put a chair. We have so many chairs.
Hi. Nice to meet you all. So thank you. Again, it was really interesting to hear so much from your perspective as well as an independent producer. Yeah, I'll take it. I can do it. Very good. So thanks for letting me drop in. So again, I mean, I want to thank also the French ecosystem, because without that, a lot of the co-productions I've been doing weren't possible. So I am carrying on from one of the questions that we had from the audience. I think that the most important thing was to be as a co-producer is to gain that minority possibility to to be eligible for co-production. So in Israel, the eligibility is 10%. So in Israel, to raise funding for a short film, the maximum I'd be able to raise in Israel from the cultural funds and from the independent funds in Israel would be around 80 to 100,000 euros. So in order for me to make a wonderful short film like Letter to a Pig or Black Slide, which are my latest two short films, I would have much needed help from France or from any other country that I would be able to communicate with. So from my perspective, I'm very much like in Greece. It's about the probability of getting these cultural funds and gaining that sum to start the project. And I think I agree a lot with Olivier that it's to fall in love with the director, with the creator, that brought me to take this project on. And I jump in as a producer very early on. They approach me, the creators, to look for someone to help them with the development and with the original animation tests. With my team, I usually invest the time and the support to get them for an application, and that's how I start my co-productions. I mean, from a lot of communication and going to these kinds of festivals and meeting amazing colleagues that I would be able to work and find a way to communicate with. And just for an example, for a Letter to a Pig, actually, it's a production. It started out actually from her winning at the Cyclic Award a residency, and she had to find a producer on the French side, but also a producer on the Israeli side in order to get more funding for the project. So after she got the residency, you have to have a producer in order to attend the residency and to get the production. So she got back, she returned to Israel, and together we developed the animation tests before getting to Cyclic, where you are obligated to do most of the animation on the production. We started by raising funds in Israel. So we got some funds from the cultural funds in Israel, which is, one of them is called the Gesher.
I have a question. Do you think it helped to have already the cyclic funding to get some money in Israel?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
no, it's a great question. I mean, it's always the chicken and the egg, isn't it? I mean, whoever gets the you get more funding, it supports the belief that you could get the rest. I mean, from my perspective, I've been doing shorts for the past decade, and only recently I've really understood that I won't start a production unless I have about 75 to 80% of the budget, because again, it's pretty much impossible for you to really know that you will be able to get all the funding that you need from the get-go, especially with short films, where there is so much development and so much creativeness from the creators. Sometimes it's a first-time project, it's a young creator, or it's someone who wants to do something to impact something. So it takes time, and again, that's why the budgets vary quite a lot when you start the production and when you end the production. You have to play with that. So we managed to get the funding for Tal in Israel, and in parallel we co-produced with Miu Productions in France, where they managed to attain the CNC and the Arte to get the project really going on. And my relationship with a co-producer has always been on just understanding each other, that we both fell in love with this project, fell in love with the creator, and it's like a marriage in a way. It's like you just need to find a way of getting this kind of thing
That's what we were saying yesterday.
Yeah,
it was a question.
So I have many husbands and many wives, and it's a really wonderful experience. Yeah. So these kinds of experiences are again. I would have loved to be yesterday. It sounded like no. So I mean, it's a real experience to really connect with these people from all around the world, and actually, Valk Productions. I'm now in a co-production with them with Holland, and I have a production currently with the UK. So again, finding these partners everywhere is something very unique, because you need to understand what each one needs and what each one wants out of their production. From my personal perspective, it's always trying to test the technology limits of how to experiment with a technique, and but it's the story again at the end of the day, isn't it? I mean, you fall in love with the story, or you fall in love with the creator who wants to tell that story. So yeah, that's my quick impact onto that productions.
Hi, Amit. Thank you for sharing with us, especially the work with Tal Kantor, because she's very well-known director here in Greece also, and we've choose it for the 16th anniversary of Asifa for special screening. One of her works in anthology we had for the Southeast Mediterranean, and I'm wondering how it is to work with her right now as a producer, and you say that is marriage for love, but it is the same thing for her, or it is more or less a forced marriage because she needs the money to do the work?
Interesting. With Tal, actually, I think it is true love. No, well, my wife will disagree. But essentially, I think Tal is an amazing creator, and she thrives from the concepts and the design and the story, and it's the same thing with the partner that she chooses. I mean, Tal specifically, she nitpicks. She's very detailed about who she works with and how she works with things. And when she says she loves a festival, she really loves a festival. She knows she was so disappointed that she wasn't able to come here this year, and it's incredible how her passion goes through into the story. So I think that when she actually chose me, in a way, because when she approached me with this concept, I love the concept. I fell in love with the idea, and I saw her short film, and I immediately knew that she's going places, and I want to go with her. But I think that when we joined forces and I realized that I need to help her get that ball going, and we together approached the funds in Israel, and I managed to get her the funding that she needed, and not all the funding, we needed more, but I think that she was very happy with the cooperation and the choice that she made. But again, maybe it's better to ask her when I'm not listening, and then it would be a good thing. But I think it's a good relationship, and we actually just came back together from Japan, and it was an amazing experience to see her on a personal aspect, how she enjoys the film, rather than just being all the time work buddies. So it's like it's a good experience. So yeah, I think it was a good choice.
I think it's one of the reasons I like to produce short film. It's the relationship with the director. It's really close relationship, and you're building something very strong. It can be dangerous, of course, but it's always very personal projects and very important step in the life of the director. So something very important. So if you can share that, that's most of the time it's very deep relationship, and sometimes it's drama because but anyway.
While I was working with Tal, I worked with 4 other creators. It's somehow we funneled the productions of our short films during COVID. Everything kind of like you had to rush, and you did it from home, and you weren't able to do it together. And I worked with 4 different creators, and each one I had a different relationship, a different attitude to work with, and it's an experience. You're like you need to zigzag between the creators, and each one needs something else from you. But it's a true relationship. I think you'll always have this baby, and this baby will kind of travel everywhere. So you have to make sure that it's going in the right direction.
Questions? I would like to ask you, usually are the directors that come to you, or you are looking for directors?
So until today, actually, people have been approaching me, but I think that I'm at the stage where the production company is always looking for interesting stories, and personally, I've always worked, the creators have always been Israeli on my short films, but I'm very open to listening, and I've been communicating it that I'm interested in always looking for new creators and new stories, and I think it's also an opportunity to gain the funding that we are looking for, because in Israel we're very close, contained, and we do need the opportunity to share our story that work on a multicultural level. And I think that all the things that I like choosing are these kinds of stories that are not only Israeli, but they can touch other countries and people and religions and etc. So yes, until today it was always coming to me.
Yeah, it's true. That's why I'm asking, because usually in Europe or in southeastern Europe, in Greece at least, most of the time are the directors who look for a producer, and not the other way around. And it's a kind of bizarre matchmaking. I mean, this marriage, it's like I'm always looking for a husband. But I mean, the director. So I take the opportunity, because in the audience we have Chris Nee, who comes from USA Netflix, and I'd like to know how it goes in your country, because usually I believe producers are looking for directors, or not? Just to have the other over the Atlantic, how it's going on.
I
mean, I think it's a combination. It depends on the project and depends on the person. A lot of my work comes from people who I've invested in and sort of watch their careers as they're growing. So I tend to reach out to people and say, by the way, I've noticed that you have a lot of female directors. Congratulations, great. I love seeing that. Part of what I'm doing is looking for people who are marginalized communities. So I'm often finding talent who may not know they're ready for the next step. And I'm going to them and saying, I actually think you have the story. I think you're ready, and I will work with you and basically teach you. I think that's part of what you do, Olivier. From what I can see, there's like a teacher element in your producing, which is a great way to bring up people who don't necessarily know that they're ready to take the next step. So in that way, I'm often looking, I don't necessarily know that's always the way in the US. I think it's often creators who are pitching producers, trying to find a producer for their project. I'm doing it another way because I want the people who don't necessarily know yet that they can get in the room, because that's a space I'm very interested in. So I reach out more than other people.
Thank you very much. Okay, if we have no other questions, we have to end up this great meeting, discussion, presentation. Anyway, we'll be all together this afternoon. We come back at 5 o'clock to go on with the only second day of AGORA, with festival directors and a fantastic subject about museums and animation. So, be back.